Namo Buddhaya. Hello everyone, welcome to Empty Cloud Monastery. Welcome to Friday Monk Chat. And today we have here with me, my name is Bhante Sumita, and to my left we have Bhante Sanatha Vihari, and then Samanera Vadda. So we are the resident monks here at the monastery these days. We have one more monk. So three of us will hopefully fit the screen. Yes, so we are happy to help if you have any questions.
Let's see who says hello, Bante.
Yes.
Hello to Rick. Hello to Jerry. Hello to Gita and Wiseman.
Wiseman ISO.
Wiseman says so.
Say so? Okay. And
also hello to Manal and S and Lydia and Karuna. Hello to Sud. Hello to all of you and Manal. And I think we have a question in there already, Bante. No?
Yes, we do have a question here from S.
From Rick, I think.
This one?
There we go.
This one?
Rick, yes.
Oh,
okay. Rick says, after experiencing strong piti and sukha and deeper meditation, is it common to experience a lasting afterglow?
You want to say something?
In my experience, yes. In my experience, there's like a residual that you carry with you for some time, different times, sometimes just minutes or hours, sometimes even days. That's, what I've seen and experienced, what people tell me and a little bit about, what I've known for myself.
Yes, and also please don't be carried away by these things. You just still have to focus on your meditation and not on piti or sukha. They can be unprecedented, really amazing, wonderful feelings that you have, but you still continue to go ahead with your meditation, and so that you will not be stuck there. So that will itself not be a hindrance to you in your progress. Okay, so keep working on. You are in a very good position, Rick. All right, we have another question here.
Okay, this asks, how to do death contemplation on a daily basis. Could you please share some details from your own experience? Okay, so, well, there's the, for specifically death contemplation, there are a couple of things that come to mind. We have the traditional 5 daily recollections, which the Buddha says should be recollected again and again by basically anybody. But those are not just death. So if you're focusing specifically on death, then there is one occasion where, or maybe several, but one time where the Buddha asks the monks, are you practicing maranasati? Are you practicing mindfulness of death, recollection of death? And one of the monks says, yes, I practice mindfulness of death. And the Buddha says, how do you practice mindfulness of death? And I don't remember all the specific monks' answers, but they basically, one of them says, maybe for instance, that they practice every time they wake up, every time they go to sleep. And another one practices every time they're chewing, like the time it takes to chew food. Or another one practices every time they take an in and out breath. And another one practices every time they take an in breath, every time they take an out breath. So there's kind of a scale. And basically what the Buddha says is that only the monks who are practicing with the time of taking breaths, the time of breathing, they are heedful. All the other monks are heedless. So even the monks who are practicing daily, and they're practicing maybe very frequently, remembering this could be, I could die, or I am my body, I may pass away, I may die, death is coming. Those types of reflections, even very frequently, the Buddha says that they're heedless. And only the monks that are doing it with every breath, whether every in-breath, out-breath, or every in-breath and every out-breath are heedful. And so the idea there is that this is something that even if you do this, let's say you wake up in the morning and you recollect, oh, I might die today, you're probably going to forget. You'll probably forget. Just saying it once is not enough, because mindfulness of death is a counter to basically what we do almost all the time, which is forgetfulness of death. Right? We always try to forget that we're going to die, and this has also been studied, even psychologically, that people don't want to remember death, and when they do remember death, they start to get they start to change, and they start to get nervous, and they start to be more defensive. So what I would recommend is that when you're breathing, for example, recollecting that it's just this breath. If this breath were to leave you, you could die, and you can't control that. Another one that I've done, for example, personally, is thinking about the heartbeat. So there's just a heart. You have no control over it. It's just beating right now, and at any moment it could stop. And there's nothing that we can do. We can try to be healthy, but at any moment it could stop, and we can't control when the heart beats and when it doesn't beat, right? So just reflecting, like, oh, there is this single organ in my body which is actually quite vulnerable, right? And at any moment it could cease, and then that would be the end of my life. So things like that, where you're reflecting with the heartbeat, it's a constant thing, and you can draw attention to it. Maybe if it gives you anxiety, don't do it too much. Do it in tiny doses, like medicine, right? We don't take very strong medicine until we are used to that. But I recommend things like breathing and the heartbeat, things that are natural processes that they remind us of death. Every time we take a breath, it's kind of reminding us, oh, this is the only thing keeping me alive. Or every time we feel the heartbeat, that's what's reminding us, oh, this is the only thing keeping me from dying right now. So those are some recommendations of just thinking of these vital processes throughout the day, and yeah, that's what I would say, because everything else I think should be relatively straightforward in terms of just reflecting on it. I think we just other variables.
Yes.
Too long.
Yes, I think the 4 Chaturaraka bhavanas in our chantings, we have Buddha Anusati Metta Cha Asubhang Maranasati Itima Chaturaraka Bhikkhu Bhavi Yusidava. These are like protective contemplations. The contemplation on Buddha, and then contemplating on metta, loving kindness, and then the foulness of the body, and eventually the death. So that this can be very helpful. If we keep chanting, it will also remind us everyday basis. And also remember, like as Venerable Buddha mentioned, breath is a very, very powerful tool for us to contemplate on death, because anytime any of our breaths could be the last one. So we need to be extremely mindful about that. So like in the Dhammapada, I think the Buddha said, Parechana vijananti mayamitha yamamase yecha tattha vijananti tato sammanti medaga. People don't know that they are going to die. Actually, as I mentioned here, we always forget that. And those people who remember, don't remember, they keep fighting with each other because they think they live forever. But those wise people who know that they are going to die, they don't want to fight anymore. They will stay more calm and peaceful. They don't want to fight. So yeah, death is really a great reminder to us to make our life more meaningful, to do the best and to be the best during our short span of life. Okay, so we do have another question here.
Okay, Prairie, how to overcome lack of confidence in general?
Yes. How to overcome lack of confidence in general. So it's part of the thina middha. what we call sloth and torpor. So when we have that, we need to remind ourselves that our life is precious, and every single moment that we pass by will not be pulled back. We won't be able to pull back. So we need to work hard, um, like in the um, some of the suttas, the Buddha said, it's so important that we work with our confidence. And for example, we have the problem of procrastination. Like in the Sigalavatta Sutta, Buddha mentioned, some people try to postpone things because they think it is too early to wake up or too late to uh, in different ways. And then when they are feeling like too hungry, they try to procrastinate. And then when they are full, they think it is too full, so you don't want to focus. And so in many different ways you try to procrastinate. And if you know that our life is so precious, and that way we can really boost our energy ourselves. And because in meditation or in otherwise, confidence is a really really important thing. In Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha mentioned, Atapi sampajano satima vinaya loke. So atapi means you need to have that energy within you. You need to have that confidence within you, that you are working on towards eliminating the defilement. So it's a constant struggle. Sometimes even while meditating, you might have that lack of confidence because you keep meditating and you don't get anything, and you might feel that lack of confidence. But then you have to do something. Maybe you need to talk to your teacher, or maybe you need to switch your meditation to a different object of meditation. And maybe you need to also, as Buddhist meditators, you can practice Buddhanusati. Buddhanusati meditation is a really morale boosting meditation technique for us. Buddhanusati is not a mainstream meditation. It is a meditation that is supportive to other meditation practices. So when you think of the Buddha's amazing qualities, like for example, 9 virtues of the Buddha, you can contemplate each and every one of them. One, for example, is Araha. If you keep thinking of the Araha, the qualities of the Araha is such that he has eliminated all forms of defilements. He has completely um, purified his heart and mind. And then there is a very interesting fact about this, and it is said, even in secret, the Buddha would not do any mistake, even in secret. Sometimes, like Putujana mundane people, we might do certain things secretly. Yeah, maybe not in public, you are shy to do such things, but in secret, maybe you have something missing, something not so good in your sila, maybe. So the Buddhas, the great Arhantas, they wouldn't do such things even in secret. So while thinking of these amazing qualities of the Buddha, we can also boost our confidence. You don't get angry, for example, when you are thinking of the Buddha. You are full of loving kindness and compassion when you think of the Buddha. You can also think how much he has sacrificed to benefit the other people. When he had an opportunity to gain arahantship himself, long time ago, many Buddhas ago, 24 Buddhas ago, when he had the opportunity to attain arahanthood, he refused it. He jump back to the samsara, because he had a great heart to help others. So thinking of the Buddha can be a really powerful confidence building for all of us. So yes, so these ways, I think, as practitioners, you can um, get rid of the confidence, get rid of the lack of confidence, and boost your confidence.
Bante, if they have Hinamana, what about if they lack confidence because of Hinamana?
Yeah. Um, this again is like different manas. We have 9 kinds of manas, it is said. Navavidha mana. So when you have that inferiority complex, right?
Bante, yes.
That's a problem that many people have, because you compare things, you compare with others, and then in that case, you need to think you are very unique in this world. Every one of us has certain ups and downs. It's okay. Maybe you are very smart in remembering things. Maybe you are very smart in mathematics. You are very smart in computer or some other things. So everyone can achieve everyone else's accomplishments, but you should listen to yourself, your own capacity. You should recognize them, you should identify them, and do not compare. Yeah, I think it's a really good point that you made. We should not compare with each other. My life is more important. I am a very unique person. My sansaric journey also is very unique. So you can build on your own. If you lose your confidence, then you will only collapse. If you try to compare with the other people around, then you won't be able to accomplish your goals. I remember recently one athlete. He said when he was training with other athletes, sometimes they are too fast, and then if you try to catch up with them, their speed is too fast. So you won't be able to. You will only end up getting injured. So you need to know your capacity. That way, I think a hinamana or inferiority complex can also be eliminated, and you can be the one whosoever you are, and do the best you can. It's okay. Remember, like, for example, numero uno is only one person, right? Number one is only one. Everyone can be the number one. So it's okay. You be number two. That will be fine. And then maybe you can think of some of those people that college dropouts, for example, or they have been eliminated, or they have been kicked out of the classes. Some of those great scientists I heard, and but they became so wonderful later on. So you listen to your own call, and then you will be a wonderful person. uh, okay. I hope it helps.
I was just thinking about even last place is unique, right? There can only be one last. There can only be one last place.
Right.
So it's still unique.
Yeah, even in the class, maybe you are the last one. Maybe later on you will be the owner of the company who could hire the number one in the class, topper in the class. There are many cases like that. So do not underestimate your power. Right. Okay, we have another question from
Okay.
Hima.
Hima asks, how much is the chance that the devas can realize the suffering in samsara and practice Dhamma?
So he's asking about the devas, right?
Yes, if they can see the suffering, if they're aware of it, right?
The thing is actually in the devas, right?
Like
Deva world is so full of happiness, sensual pleasures. Sometimes they forget about the sun suffering, right? So it is mostly like we humans have a better opportunity, I think, rather than the devas.
Bante, before I was a monk, I used to go to a lot of parties and clubs and raves and vacations and enjoy my life.
Mm.
And I remember in those moments, I don't even remember my mother. I don't remember that I have a mother or a father.
Mm.
I don't remember that I have a job. I don't
Mm.
remember anything because I'm enjoying life. The
Right.
last thing in my mind was suffering, right? Suffering didn't exist to me. It was all pleasure. So imagine the devas who experience like 100 times better than that.
1,000 times.
They're never going to think about it. It's very difficult for it to come to mind.
Yeah, sensual gratification to the maximum, you can imagine. Those people, even in this world, there are people who live very luxurious lifestyles. Maybe they don't remember some of these things, as he said, the suffering. So, yeah, you need to experience certain miseries. But even in the devas,
Mhm.
when their life is about to be end,
Mm.
so they feel like they are sweating, and they are all those beautiful garlands and all are fading, start to fade, and they are very lavish, and ornaments and all are fading, and then they start to feel like suffering. Oh, I am going to die soon. This is going to be the end of my life. And the other day was also come to know, and he is going to die soon. That way, actually, he can think of the suffering. Otherwise, the devas probably they won't be able to think of such practices unless you. But one thing is there, like devas also have some assemblies, like Kalyana Mitta assemblies,
Mm.
and then they also discuss the Dhamma. There are some devas like that, not necessarily every deva. And in that case, they can also practice, they can listen to Dhamma. It is said they also can achieve Magga-phalas.
Like Saka, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
Sri Lanka, they have statues of Indra, Saka
Yes,
everywhere because
yes,
he's the
yes.
protector of Dhamma.
It is called Sudhamma Sabha, the assembly of Sudhamma. They are all those devas, some of those Maggaphala devas can get together, and the other Kalyana Mitta devas also get together and they can discuss. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. This question says, I'm new to Buddhism, currently reading the Pali Canon translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi. I don't fully grasp kamma. If there is no self, then who or what is good and bad kamma being passed on to in future lives? Okay. Well, so this is this is a good question, and actually, it's I think I would say just I wouldn't sell yourself short. You say you're new to Buddhism, and actually, I would say that this is one of the most it's one of the most difficult or kind of paradoxical things for Buddhism, for Buddhist theory, right? Because people usually would say, well, I don't want to suffer, but if it's not me who's receiving the suffering, then why should I care, right? And if you reflect on the Buddhist teachings about non-self, that you might actually be driven to that conclusion, right? It's a normal thing, because if you think, oh well, it's not me anyway. I've actually heard very experienced like Buddhist practitioners who were practicing for many, many years, and the way that they thought about rebirth was kind of like, I'm setting up the conditions for someone else in the future, like it's another person, kind of like you're kind of building a future person's life, but it's not. They thought like, oh, it's not my life, it's just someone else. So I'm just doing it out of compassion for them, but it's not me. And the Buddha was asked this question directly, and someone, they said, is the person who does the deed, is it the same person who gets the result? Right? So we say the phala, the fruit, or the vipaka. So is it the same person? And the Buddha says, he does not say that. And they say, oh, so it's a different person then. And he says, no, I don't say that either. So it's not the same person, it's not a different person. And they say, well, maybe it's a mixture of both, right? Maybe it changes. And maybe it's like sometimes I'm the person who gets the result, but sometimes other people get the result. No. Well, is it just random then? No, it's none of that. And the Buddha says that he teaches the middle way, which is what we call dependent arising, paticca samuppada. So basically, we need to set aside this question, right, of self, no self, because even in this life, um, it doesn't matter. We sometimes think, okay, in future lives, who's receiving the result? But you can just think yesterday and today. Is it the same person? Is it the same self who did yesterday and today? You can just imagine, what if you had amnesia and you forgot all of your memories? What if you forgot absolutely everything from your life and you woke up one day and it was completely new? What about all the suffering from the past and all the good memories, right? So a lot of who we think we are and who's experiencing the results of our actions, it's a kind of complex web of our memories and our aspirations and who we, our ideas about ourselves. And we can't really pin down something which is who we are. We can't find that when we look, right? So, but at the same time, just like in this life, if we do something good and then we feel the results of that, or we do something bad and we feel the results of that, that doesn't require some kind of self or some kind of entity that's traveling through. We can feel that in this life, right? So even in this life, the Buddha teaches that we can't find a self, but even in this life, we still feel pain or we feel pleasure because of the good and bad we do. And so it doesn't matter whether it's one day to tomorrow, or when you're a child to when you're an adult, or from this life to the next life, or this life to 10 lifetimes. It's all the same process. The time, how it works is all the same. And so I guess my personal suggestion to you would be not to try to work it out philosophically, but just to reflect on your own experience, right? Like if you try to think about it, then you might come to the conclusion again that, oh, it's someone else or it's not the same person. And the Buddha doesn't answer that question because it's a wrong way of thinking about it. We don't need a self to explain consequences of actions, right? And we don't need a self to we don't need to depersonalize it too much by thinking it's someone else, or by thinking we don't need to personalize it too much by thinking it's the same person. We don't need to think in those terms at all. We can just think this action has this result, and we don't like bad results. We like good results, right? So yeah, it is a difficult question. It's something that they're kind of a little bit unrelated, but there is a monk at the time of the Buddha who was named Malunkyaputta, and there's a sutta where he's thinking the Buddha hasn't declared certain things. Like one of the things that the Buddha didn't say is, does the Tathagata, does the Buddha exist after death or not exist after death, and so on. And the Buddha said that he didn't declare that. And this monk was thinking, I'm going to go up to the Buddha and I'm going to ask him this question. And if he doesn't give me an answer, then I'm going to say, well, you need to admit that you don't know the answer then. And if you don't admit it, then I'm disrobing. I'm going to leave monastic life. And so the monk, he goes up to the Buddha and he says, is this the case? Is that the case? Tell me the answer. And the Buddha says, I don't tell that. And he says, well, then you need to admit that you don't know the answer. And the Buddha, it's not that he doesn't know the answer. It's that he doesn't say it. He doesn't talk about these things because they're completely irrelevant and they're misunderstanding. They're thinking in the wrong way, right? So yeah, that's kind of it's a complicated issue, but I would just suggest don't try to think if there's no self, who's receiving it. You can just think in this life, if there's no self, who's receiving it, and you still feel that, but it doesn't require a self to explain it. If that's helpful.
Yeah, you need to focus on dependent origination, I think, to learn more about the real thing about the karma. Also, I recommend you read a book called Milinda Panya. There are really wonderful answers to many questions, especially as you are new to Buddhism. There could be some books like we can suggest,
Yes.
like What the Buddha Taught by Venerable Rahula, and also Bhikkhu Bodhi's book. What is that
In the
called?
Buddha's words, Bhante?
In the
Or
Buddha's
the-
words,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah, there are some books so that you can learn more about that, and also stay in touch with this monk chat. Also listen to many Dhamma talks. Yeah, and now lots of resources are there. Online resources are there for you to expand the territory of this wonderful knowledge of Buddhism. Yeah, so hopefully.
Can I say something? Because
Yes.
I noticed a pattern, because I was guilty of it myself. When new people come into Buddhism, especially in modernity, or if you're a Westerner, we have this tendency of trying to start like at the end, right? Trying to work backwards. So we go into the deep philosophy of Buddhism, or we try to go into like Vipassana right away, where we really need to follow what the Buddha laid out as the gradual training, right? So there's a system that the Buddha shared with us for us to follow. And we always kind of want to get a sneak peek right into like what's coming in the future, but like it's beyond our comprehension. We need to set up the right conditions to get there. So in the beginning, we need to develop our generosity, our ability to be generous, and to share with others, and to give, and to see the benefits in giving, right? Become a bit more selfless and start focusing on the well-being of others and not ourselves. And then we also need to develop, as Bhante was talking about, Buddhanusati, our confidence, right? Our confidence and trust, and our faith and devotion in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These are like the two main elements where you start in the beginning. Then after that, we move on to like morality, right? The dangers of like sensual pleasures, and the wholesomeness of doing good things. And these are kind of like the two main practices in which we build a foundation. We need to understand these kind of aspects first, because in giving, you will understand karma also. In following the precepts and morality, you will begin to understand karma. And this, by developing an experiential understanding of karma and actions, as Vada was alluding to, right, in your own experience, seeing the actions and the consequences, you'll begin to gain more insight that will help you with these deeper topics, these deeper parts of the Dhamma, about like what's going on with karma, what's going on with rebirth, who's experiencing it, what is actually good karma, what's bad karma, what's punya karma, all these different questions we have about actions. First, we actually need to like do it, right? So practice doing karma, do good karma, practice doing good karma and avoiding bad karma, and see the results for yourself. And then that will help you understand all the theory once you get your toes in the water.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Michael asks, what does your current meditation practice look like?
Like this right now.
Yeah. You see, like we can practice. For example, I myself practice mostly Buddhanusati, Anapanasati, and Metta Bhavana. And sometimes I also practice foulness of the body and contemplation on that. And also mindfulness immersed in the body, this walking meditation. I switch between these, and depending on the mood, depending on the, if I want to take a different, I would also consider practicing some other meditation. But the most important thing is like in day-to-day basis, how we apply these wonderful theories into our day-to-day circumstances, ups and downs in your life, different conditions, in different occasions and different locations, mood changes and emotional changes. Many things can happen when you encounter so many different people. So you need to practice, you need to apply that. If you don't know how to apply that, then maybe you need to ask others, or you need to switch to different meditation techniques.
Bhante, one that I try to practice from the moment that I wake up till I go to sleep, is actually two things, but they're connected. Is always watching, always becoming aware of, is this a wholesome thought or is this an unwholesome thought all the time? And unwholesome thoughts arise throughout the day. I get upset, I get annoyed, I get frustrated, right? I see myself wanting something, craving for something. I'm like, oh, there it is. There's that, right? Oh, is this good for me? Is this good for others? Is this good for both? No, I don't think so. Okay, put it away, right? And then I'll come back in. I'm like, no, you stay right there, right? And it comes back in, and I keep doing this little dance. So that's the practice that I'm doing constantly. And another part to that is that I'm always trying to generate loving kindness all the time. I tell myself, right? When I see like some aversion or anger or resentment or jealousy come into my mind, I'm like, oh, this is the time for loving kindness. And then sometimes I even have to fake it. Like I have to make myself, right? But then I catch myself actually, because loving kindness feels good. I find myself just doing it because it's pleasant. I'm like, oh, this is very nice. I actually like it. And then other people smile, and the way they receive loving kindness also helps me kind of forget that I was whatever unwholesome state of mind that I was in. But always being vigilant of my mind, always being aware of what state I'm in, right? So I don't harm myself, and I don't harm others. That's like my main practice, of always being aware of my unwholesome thoughts or wholesome thoughts.
What's your practice?
I don't have much special to add. My staple meditation practice is usually anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. And then I like to do metta. I haven't actually been doing much like formal metta bhavana. It's still, I try to usually throughout the day there'll be little points so I'll kind of remember, like to generate at least a little bit of metta. But in terms of formal sitting, it's actually been a while, probably, so relatively speaking. But yeah, and also I would just agree with what the Venerable said. I mean, I feel like, especially as a monk, you have a lot of time to practice different meditation practices. And so for me, my current one, as is relatively normal, is I tend to kind of fall back on anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, if I'm doing that kind of thing. But it can shift. And yeah, I don't have much to add. Definitely mindfulness of mind, though. I mean, being aware of the mind and being aware of thoughts is definitely something that I think, especially, is very important, but also very something that's quite prevalent in monastic life, I feel like.
Yeah, like in Satipatthana Sutta said, Satima Vinaya Loke. Atapi Sampajano Satima. You need to have a strong willpower to get rid of the unwholesome thoughts. As Venerable Sanatha Vihari mentioned, you need to watch your mind, observe how the unwholesome thoughts can occur to you in your mind in day-to-day basis. You have to be really mindful. Atapi means you need to be very strong in your practice. So, and then also you need to make a lot of determination, and then also satima, Sampajano and Satima, that they are almost related to each other. It's about mindfulness all the time. Like Gate, Tite, Nisine, Sutte, Jagarite. Like when you wake, when you stand, when you sleep, when you walk, when you work, when you cook, when you eat, when you take shower, every time you have to be mindful. Like how your mind works, how your body works, and if you are more mindful about this, you can really be in control. If you lack your mindfulness, many things can happen to you without your knowing. So be extremely careful. Let's say like you get angry, and after a while you forget that the anger will be gone. So you think, okay, my anger is no more, but you still have that. How do you know? Like you think of that person, and immediately that latent tendency, the hidden anger will pop up. And when you hear that person's voice, or if you hear that person in your eyes later on, you still have that anger. You see, because you're not mindful at that time. So be careful when you have the anger. If you can recognize that I got anger right away, and then you can be in control, so that those toxic droppings will not be left behind if you are mindful at the time, at the moment of your unwholesome thoughts. Otherwise, these latent tendencies will pile up in your consciousness, and it will be very hard to remove later on. There will be piles after piles. All these defilements will be stored in your deep consciousness. So be careful, be mindful all the time. That will be very helpful to everyone, all the practitioners. Is that a question?
Okay, I think it's Let me just double check. Okay, so Mano's been doing more meditation and having some trouble with the breathing. So the challenge has always been to start the first 5 to 10 minutes, then is able to keep meditating, but the breathing seems to be very labored and hyper-focused, causing strain. How can I make the physical process of inhale, exhale slightly more smooth?
You want to answer?
So there's a couple of things that come to mind. So I found that sometimes we take the idea of concentration maybe like too literal, right? So like when we hyper focus on something, we mean, oh yeah, we're practicing concentration meditation, therefore I should like bear down on something. And when we do that, that kind of alters whatever we're doing. I don't know if you ever notice yourself like walking and then someone talks to you out of nowhere and you kind of like put a lot of attention on yourself, like you can't walk properly. You start like stumbling because you're too focused on yourself. So you right, or like you're doing something and you focus too much on yourself, so you become sloppy. Maybe you throw the dishes over because there's too much focus. It's too narrow, right? So if we bear it down like that on the breath too, it begins to like we see ourselves like starting to control it, and usually we make the breath like very strong, powerful, like feeling like focusing on the breath, right? It's a natural thing that happens when you focus too much on something, right? So usually what I try to do is I try to open up my awareness. So instead of having my awareness of the breath like on a particular part of the body, like that cramped or that focus, I usually open it up. So my awareness is like usually I can't see the bottom, but it's all the way to my like navel, and I monitor like this whole part. It's really big, right? And then I even open it up to my entire body while I'm breathing in, experiencing the entire body, breathing out, experiencing the entire body. And I found that the more space you create, the less tight it is, the less you tend to try to control the breath. So open it up, like opening up our awareness and not bearing down so much on the breath is one way that I found where I don't start doing that. And I've also heard other people report similar things. So that's one of the things that comes to mind, particularly working just with the breath. If you want to stay on the breath, I mean, there's other meditations you can do. Like Anapanasati is like not working for you right now. You can try other meditations. Mindfulness of feelings, of the pleasantness, unpleasantness, and neutral feeling. Mindfulness of the mind, mindfulness of phenomena. So there's other things we can still work with mindfulness and not focusing on the breath, right? In particular, we can do the death meditations. We talked about metta. We talked about Buddha. There's a whole buffet of meditations that we can do. And we have our ups and downs in the practice. So we also have to give ourselves a little bit of like grace and be like, oh, maybe this week and next week hasn't been working out for me, or this is not the time of year that practice is working out for me. And you can try up another practice, right? But if you really have a strong determination, like, no, I really want to do mindfulness of breath, then maybe try what I told you a little bit, kind of open up your and make your practice a little bit more spacious, where you're not bearing down so much on the breath.
Yeah, Mana, I also suggest you maybe if you are a beginner, you can start practicing counting method. Counting method on Anapanasati is very helpful for beginners. So you kind of start when you relax. Remember, when you practice Anapanasati, you have to be really completely, absolutely unshaken body. You need to also keep your body straight. Ujung kayang panidhaya parimukang sating upattapetta. That is how it is mentioned, explained in Satipatthana Sutta. So you need to straighten your body and straighten your head, and then relax your body, and then maybe take a few more deep breaths intentionally to settle into your meditation, and then focus on your counting, like breathe in and breathe out. You can count, and then 1 to 5, and then count again 1 to 6, and then 1 to 7, 1 to 8, 1 to 9, and 1 to 10. If you start counting, but remember, you can make mistakes. You can count less than 5, you can count more than 10. And after 10, you have to start over and count again. Count your breath. That way, you will be able to stay focused not only counting, but also on your breath. And that will be a good maybe trick for you as a beginner. And also remember to stay calm and quiet and listen to your own breath. Anapanasati is a common meditation practice that can be practiced by all the people with different temperaments. Remember, there are different temperaments. People with raga charita, like lustful temperament. Dosa charita, people with hateful temperaments, and moha charita, ignorant, and Saddha, Buddhi, Vitaka, different kinds of six temperaments are there. So Anapanasati can be practiced by all of them. You can make yourself very calm when you practice Anapanasati. It's a really powerful meditation.
And Harry had a question. I'm just going to close. Do you want to have a question, Harry?
Yeah.
Oh.
I have a question. Is there any books that you recommend for like that have all the different types of meditation or?
Visuddhimagga, path of purification.
Okay. Yeah, you told me about that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I told you about
They
it.
talk about all the different
Yes,
types.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a really good one. I mean, this is a traditional one.
Mm-hmm.
But there should be other, definitely there should be other. I think Bhikkhu Analeo Satipatthana, his PhD dissertation.
Okay.
But I think he has also modified it for practitioners' sake. So, yeah, those are some of the books that I get. I remember like PAUK School of Buddhism, they also have some books. And there should be many other books that you can, but keep reading the Visuddhimagga.
Thank you.
And later you can come up with some questions if you have. Okay. Travis?
Yeah. Davi asks how to effectively remove self-ego under the Buddhist context and definition of ego. Many thanks. Well, I would say the Noble Eightfold Path.
Yes.
That's how to remove self-ego. No need to concern yourself with that particularly. There's many other defilements, and they're all purified by the Noble Eightfold Path. So if you're unfamiliar with the Noble Eightfold Path, I'd recommend looking into that. And then in terms of the Buddhist context and definition of ego, this I think is a good question, because I think there's a lot of confusion, and especially in the not necessarily just in the West, but by convert Buddhists, because this word ego is, it's used by many religions also. Like I would say almost every spiritual tradition I've heard, they probably talk about removing the ego, right? But that doesn't mean it's the same as the Buddhists. So that's a good question. Very wise of you, actually, to think that there is a difference, because most people assume there isn't. They assume it's all the same. So that's very wise. And I would say in the Buddhist terms, the ego basically is what we call asmimana. So the conceit or the concept of asmi, which means I am. And actually, Bhante already mentioned this, the hinamana. So that's the concept of hina, basic inferiority. But then there's also thinking, I am better, right? This is what we usually think of with pride or conceit. So this is, I'm better than someone else, or I am better than other people. So this is thinking I am better, or I am worse. And also, I am equal, which maybe we think, oh, that's the right one. I'm not going to think I'm better. I won't think I'm worse. So I'll think I'm equal. But the Buddha says that is also conceit. It's also thinking asmi mana. So it's also thinking I am something. And so for the Buddha and Buddhism, ego and self-ego, it means thinking I am anything at all. I am a human. I am a writer. I am a, whatever we think we are. I am this. I am better, equal, or worse. And so it's important to remember that this cannot be removed overnight, and it cannot be thought your way out of. Like, oh, I am now going to remove my ego. I will now remove that myself from my own self, right? So we can't really think our way out of this. It's something that has to naturally evolve. Kind of like if you want to get apples or you want to get mangoes or you want to get fruit, you can't plant a seed and then force it to give you a fruit, right? You have to wait. And then once you see the fruit budding on the plant, you can't immediately grab it off because it won't be ready yet, right? You have to wait so the plant will grow up, it'll eventually flower, the flower will start to turn into the fruit, and then you have to wait, and it might look like, oh, this is going to be so tasty, I'm going to pick the fruit now. You can't do that until the fruit is ready, right? So we can't get ahead of ourselves and think, okay, now I'm going to get rid of my I'm going to do this intentionally. It has to be a natural evolution, and if you haven't fulfilled the noble eightfold path, you will be fooling yourself. We will be fooling ourselves if we think that we can remove it just by by choice. So yeah, it's just really, but in terms of practical steps you can take is, following your sila. This is one of the big ways that we have our sense of self. For example, lying, right? I'm going to protect my sense of self by lying to other people, or by stinginess, by not practicing generosity. We think like, oh, I'm going to keep my stuff. I don't want to share with them. So by practicing generosity, we start to remove really coarse ego, and also by practicing our sila, also not thinking that our life is more important than other people's lives, right? We don't kill other beings for our own convenience. So that is a big ego thing, right? Just to say like, I am going to value other people's lives just as much as my own life. And again, that doesn't mean devaluing our life. We value ourselves and other beings um, the same way, right? But we don't need to think like, oh, I am the same as all these people. We just have that value. We have that self-worth in a healthy sense, right? And that can eventually lead us to letting go of that. But it's a gradual process. It's a gradual purification. We have to take the Visuddhi Magga, the path of purification.
Yeah, so letting go is the way to get rid of self-ego. Remember, like he was doing like this? That's also a way of getting rid of your ego. Like, look, all of us, we have also got rid of our hair. So, and also we are from 3 different communities and we wear the same robe. And so we have become like very equal. And so we respect each other, and we have got rid of our own self ego. I don't say like completely, but we can see that great opportunity to get rid of ego. So Buddha said, when people become enter the order from all different castes and countries and cultures and communities, they when they enter the order, they become equal. There is no upper or lower because of their all other mundane achievements or something, but they are very equal when they enter the order. That's a tremendously powerful way to get rid of our ego. And also the robe that we wear also is really helpful for us to get rid of our ego, because we can wear those fancy clothes like the other people wear. So we have very simple clothes, and we live very simple lifestyle. And that way it is a matter of being simple and humble. So you sit on the floor, that also is helping you to get rid of your ego. And also when you bow to the Buddha, bow to the elder senior monks, that also helps you get rid of the ego. I think in our monastic tradition, we have a beautiful tradition, like it's not the biological age that is counted, but it is the age that you enter the order, the ordination years that matter. So sometimes I feel like I meet many people like they are much elder to me in biological age, but they bow to me because I became a monk long ago, and so my ordination age is more senior to them. So in this case, that beautiful humility really helps us to get rid of the ego. And even monks, we have a beautiful sutta called Dasadhamma Sutta, right? In that Dasadhamma Sutta, the Buddha mentioned uh, 10 factors. It really helps us. Abhinhang Paccavekkitabba. You need to constantly remember that you depend on others. Also, you have become a monk. You wear a robe, and also you have to practice. And many things are there that about this practice, and that way we can get rid of the ego. So many things are there actually about this teaching.
This one maybe Bante, maybe you can.
Yeah, I can read that.
Do you know what this
It's in
says?
Hindi.
How do we realize Pancha Upadana Skandha?
Oh.
How do we realize Pancha Upadana Skandha? So Pancha Skandha and Pancha Upadana Skandha, there are two different things. Skandha, the Pancha Skandha is the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, right? So all of us have that. Why does it become Upadana? Because you strongly hold on to that. Then it becomes Upadana. Like for Arahanta person, for an enlightened person, he or she does have Panchakanda. But the other people have Pancha Upadana Kanda because we judge, we hold, we have that grasping. Let's say you see a rupa, you see a form through your eyes, and then you already have some judgment. Oh, this is very nice. Oh, this is not nice. I don't like it, and so you already have judgment. And so when you have the same thing with the sound, when you hear a sound, if you like, it becomes pleasant. If you don't like, it becomes unpleasant. When you smell things, same thing, pleasant, unpleasant. When you have taste, food, different foods, it could be pleasant, unpleasant. And also contacts with the body, you can have pleasant, unpleasant. So these panchakanda um, can be upadana kanda, with the grasping, with the judgment, with siding, with that discrimination. It can become upadana. That way we create karma. And the arahanta people, it is said, ditthe ditthamata. They see, and that's it. See it for the sake of it, and you don't create any karma. You hear something, and this is just a sound for them. It doesn't create any karma for them. So that is the difference between pancha skandha and pancha upadana skandha. Okay.
Okay, S asks, they have a question regarding personal issues. Every time I see a person better than me, I want to compare and exceed them, not in terms of being superior, but more knowledge and ability wise. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's giving me I think motivation to improve, but sometimes anxiety. Should I stop doing this? Thank you.
You want to say something?
Yeah, let me just look at it again. Yeah, so if we're comparing ourselves to others, right? If we're saying like, oh, this person has more than me, you might not think that, or it might be uncomfortable or not obvious to think that, oh, I'm trying to one-upsman this person. But that's actually what's happening, even though you said like, oh, I don't think that's what's happening. That's what's happening, at a subtle level that's in there. somehow we feel that we need to justify ourselves, right, by doing more than that person, that our own value is based on us being able to be better than others or do better than others. This is a form of conceit, and it's very subtle, because we can justify it by doing like, well, I just want to be a better person, that's why I'm doing it, right? Or, oh, I want to give my family a better life, and that's when, I mean, we can rationalize so many things all the time. But if we really look deeply at it, we see that there's some sense of insecurity in ourselves. There's some sense of insecurity, and we think that we can feel secure by being better than others in some way, right? Or if I would only have the bigger house or the bigger car or more bank account or this title, if people would call me doctor, if people would, etc., if I were famous, all these kinds of things, right, are the things. So, I think we need to accept this, that we all have, to some degree, that inferiority complex, superiority complex, and everyone is equal complex. It's there for all of us because we're not arhants, right? So it's there, and it manifests in many different ways, and there's many ways that we find clever ways to kind of disguise it, right? Or we can't admit it to ourselves. It's sometimes it's very subtle, so it's not very obvious too. So once we have this realization that yes, I do have, this mana in its different degrees, in these 3 different degrees, then we can start investigating, our actions and where they're coming from, and why do we feel that we need to do this. Sometimes it's very cultural. Some cultures put a lot of demand on your own value being tied to what you produce and comparing others. Unfortunately, I see this with a lot of kids, like, oh, they come and tell me at the temple, like, oh, my mom's always comparing me to my cousin in Sri Lanka, or my cousin who got into Stanford or Harvard or Berkeley, and my parents are telling me, oh, you should get into Stanford or Harvard or Berkeley, or this person's a doctor, like, all these kinds of things are happening all the time, and that goes in there, right? So a lot of our actions are driven by these cultural expectations that we have of ourselves, and we don't feel ourselves adequate unless we do something, right? Or we're producing, or we're contributing to society to some way, or we have like I don't know, we're creating an ideal family that everyone will be like, oh, that person has a good family. He has the wife and the house and the car and the kids, and everyone's the same way, right? And all these kinds of things. So it's good that we try to do our best, right? And we should always strive to do better. But here's the key, as Bhante said earlier, without comparing to others, right? So if you do want to help your family, that's fine, but don't look at the Jones next door, right? That's like, whatever they're doing, that's none of your business. Whatever your coworker's doing, that's none of your business, right? So we do all these things. We do want to make a better life, and it's great that you're trying to better yourself, but do it without comparing yourself. Do it without looking at other people. That's really the key, right? The only kind of standard of measurement should be yourself, right? Am I improving or am I degrading, right? Like, am I improving in wholesome qualities or am I increasing in unwholesome qualities? And as long as you're improving in wholesome qualities and reducing unwholesome qualities, then you're on the right path. Doesn't matter what anyone else is doing, just focus on that. So that's that would be my take on the kind of situation that you're describing.
Yeah, I think if you have a lot of friends who are working on medicine, medical degree, maybe you will also be motivated. Okay, I wish I also could be like that, right? Sometimes it happens, like when friends are there, like you also want to be like that. But then you need to know your capacity, right? If you exceed your capacity, then you will end up like getting anxiety, as you mentioned. It's good to be motivated. Sometimes, like even in the sasana, for example, in the spiritual realm, when you meet a Buddha, um, people can motivate themselves. I also want to be like that. If you want to be a great monk like Venerable Ananda, Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Moggallana, I think that's how they did, right? So they saw them and they also were working towards that. But then you need to know where to go, how to go. You need to know your capacity, and then you can probably achieve that. If you're not capable of achieving such high, lofty goals, then stick to your own capacity and be do as much as you can, so you don't get anxious then. No anxiety anymore. I think it was selected. This one?
Yeah. So Sud asks, how should one practice Devanusati? Yes, so Devanusati. Well, the way that that it's described in the suttas is that we recollect. You can recollect, for example, Devanusati. Let me put it like this: it's not about recollecting the devas just for their sake, right? As the Buddha describes it. So it's not just thinking thinking about the devas, but it's a reflection in seeing what qualities the devas have to have been reborn as devas, and then recollecting what of those qualities you yourself have. So it's a way of, it's very similar to Siddhanusati, right? When we recollect Siddha, or when we do Chaganusati, recollecting our generosity, it's actually, it's a little bit, it's almost more of like a recollecting the qualities you have than it is about the devas. Now, it is about the devas because you're kind of thinking like, oh, these divine beings. It's kind of saying like, if you have the same qualities, then it's almost like you're a deva on earth, right? You're an angel or you're a god on earth. Um, and so the traditional list, if I remember correctly, is you recollect what level of saddha, so what level of faith you have, what level of sila you have, morality. Also, it even mentions what level of sutta, which is what level of learning that you have. And then also what level of panya, what level of wisdom. Am I missing one? Bante?
Saddha, Sila, Sati, Samadhi, Panya.
Sati Samadhi. Oh, okay. Maybe I may
Maybe
have
a
written
different.
list. But yeah, so remembering these spiritual qualities, and I think it can even be other qualities as well. Like you can even think, for example, of I don't think generosity is listed there explicitly, but that could be something you do. Instead of just recollecting generosity, you think like, okay, the devas, for example, to be reborn as a deva, they had this level of sila. And there are also suttas that I know there's been talks here before in the past. For example, the Buddha talks about the vows that Sakka took to be reborn as Sakka, right? And so really, why did the Buddha teach that? He didn't just do it as a kind of fun fact. This is how this person was reborn as a deity. He's actually saying these are vows that you can take, and then you can recollect in yourself. Let's say that you take the vow, for example, not to lie, and you take and you practice generosity, and you learn the Dhamma, and you develop your wisdom. Then you can recollect, that you have those same qualities that this divine being had to be reborn in that state. And so it's kind of reflecting on these divine beings and then closing the gap between yourself and the divine beings to inspire you, kind of like what we were talking about, the motivation, right? The devas are spiritually superior in the sense of they develop these qualities. They're kind of like the top students in terms of spiritual qualities, right? In terms of their virtue and things. So you can kind of recollect that actually you might have those same qualities, and it might inspire you to feel the beautiful spiritual qualities in your heart, to feel them more brightly, and to keep developing them, and also to recollect these other beings who are kind of like role models, right? That is a big difference in Buddhism, is that the deities, they are role models for what we can become. They're not some kind of thing that we will never be equal to, right? So the Buddha is saying you can recollect how you can develop and how you might have these qualities in yourself. So in terms of practical instructions, a simple way of doing it is, again, you can think, for example, maybe there's a particular deity or particular heaven realm that you've heard about in Buddhism that inspires you, right? So maybe, for example, one person told me once that they were inspired by some of the Chatur Maharajika devas. So this is, kind of a random thing. Maybe they're inspired by some of these, basically what we would call like nature spirits. They're kind of like earth spirits. And so maybe that inspires you. Maybe you just find it inspiring that there are these kind of earth spirits. Or maybe you find it inspiring of Davatingsan deities, right? Like Sakka, what we call Indra, or other it doesn't have to be a particular deity's name, but just like what is it like to be there, and what are the qualities that lead to being reborn there, or Tusita heaven, and all these different heaven realms. You can recollect. Maybe there's one that inspires you if you've heard about it or something, and then you can think like, you can also learn, okay, what are the qualities that gets one reborn there, right? And then you start to recollect, do I have those qualities? Right? Do I have these? Do I have faith? Faith in Buddhadhamma, Sangha? Do I have faith in the power of karma, the power of virtue? Do I have virtue? Like, do I have these precepts? Do I have learning? Do I develop my wisdom? Do I develop all these spiritual qualities? And then comparing how you have the same qualities that these devas have. That's what we're doing it.
He has a follow-up here, which I think
Yeah.
you've kind of already answered, but
Yeah.
you
So
already
the
answered
benefits.
it.
Benefits
Oh.
means when you follow, you will have those wonderful qualities. That will be the benefit.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Okay, Hima asks, how to differentiate between upekkha and being cold or apathetic?
Psychology.
Yeah. So we have to remember the context of upekkha, right? Upekkha is not what we think it is. We have to think about it within the context. And I like to think about it within the context of the Brahma Viharas, right? This is going to make it very clear that it's not being cold, apathetic, or indifferent. So to get to upekkha, where do we start? You can't just jump into upekkha, right? How do we get there? Oh, we start with metta, right? Friendliness, with loving kindness. That means concern for the well-being of others, right? For their happiness. All right, that doesn't sound cold or apathetic to me. Then where do we go from there? Well, then we're also concerned about their suffering, right? And we want them to be free from that suffering, right? And we also have like an intention and motivation, may they be free, right? So that is also not cold or apathetic. Then we have mudita, right? Which is rejoicing in the success of others, right? That's also a very nice. So from these qualities, then we develop upekkha. And upekkha is that when the mind is no longer perturbed by what's going on, right? So whether the person is if they're nice to you, whether they're mean to you, right? Whether they're doing good things out there in the world, whether they're doing bad things in the world, you still have this limitless mind, this boundless mind, appamanya. You still have this Brahma Vihara towards them, right? Your love for them, your compassion for them, your altruistic joy, all these qualities are not dependent on what they're doing anymore, right? Your mind is unperturbed by their actions. It's kind of like a mother, right? Whose children might be doing all kinds of things, but that level of, divine dwelling, that level of purity of mind and just kind of really, really deep concern for the well-being and happiness of those beings is not affected. Is not affected, right? And then we can also look at it from the lens of the Sattva too. And we're like, oh, what are these qualities? Well, these qualities of the Sattva also don't seem cold or indifferent or apathetic too, right? So we have to kind of see upekkha within the context in which the Buddha is sharing with us. So there's like, sometimes we think upekkha means to be indifferent, and that's not what it is. It doesn't mean not to care. There's nothing about upekkha that tell us that is telling us that we don't care. When we talk about equanimity, we're talking about like balance the mind. The mind is balanced. The mind is tranquil. That's what we mean by equanimous, right? Or equipose, right? That the mind is not shaking. That's what upekkha means. Upekkha doesn't mean you don't care, right? So I think once we think about this term within the context, it's very easy for us to understand what upekkha means.
Yes. Okay. And
Bante, do you think that you answered this? It's the same question, the same person. I don't know if...
yes, I think we answered
Okay.
this question.
Okay.
The question is how to deal with lacking of energy and enthusiasm to do things that I should do. I think we were talking about that.
Okay. So Lydia asks, when does the rains retreat end?
Sometime in October, right?
October or November. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end of 3 months, usually after we have the Chivara Masa. So that will be, I think this year it starts with July, right?
Yes.
So July,
August,
August,
September.
September. Yeah, somewhere in October.
But don't be too eager, Lydia. The rains retreat hasn't even started.
Yeah.
That's when it ends.
Yes.
Okay, Andrew, this is for Dante.
Oh, okay.
Dear Bantes, is there a sutta where the Buddha corrected someone's wrong view that things happen not due to karma, but due to divine intervention?
Yes, do you want to say something?
I can't think of any time where I've read a sutta where something
There's
happens and
one.
it doesn't have to do with the person's karma. It's like something outside of karma, where there's some sort of divine intervention. I mean,
I think he's asking wrong view. Like if they have a wrong view, that things happen too,
if they have the wrong
instead of
view,
karma.
where a deva like teaches right, with the deva teaches right view. I
Well,
guess that's what it's implied.
at least that's not how I read it. But the way that I read it is there's a sutta where it's called the Tithayatana Sutta, and in there basically the Buddha says like some people they have the view that what things are caused to is caused due to God's will, and what the Buddha responds to that is that well if things are caused by God, then I guess people kill, steal, lie, and do all these horrible things because God made them do it. And this is actually a theological problem for
Yes.
Christianity, and that's why they have, I'm not going to reduce it. That it is, they do have takes on it, but it is a problem, and so I don't know if that's what they're thinking of, or if that's.
So you can have the human intervention to get rid of the wrong view. So yeah, I think wrong view, michaditti, is something that can really block us seeing the things as they truly are, right? So we need to see, I think in day-to-day basis, we need to see what is right and what is wrong. What is the true essence of the things that we find, and hopefully that can help you get out of this wrong view. Okay, so we go to the other one.
Okay, Rick asks, what are skillful attitudes and intentions that we should maintain toward having a good rebirth? Is it more skillful to orient our intentions towards full liberation? So I think in terms of aiming for good rebirth or aiming for freedom.
I don't think they have to be separate things. We can have our cake and eat it too. So we aim for liberation, and if we fall short, if we're aiming high, we fall short, we'll fall short in at least in the human realm, right? And then maybe in the heavens. So it's always good to try your best, but also have a realistic worldview that it takes people's countless lives, right, to reach liberation. But I think if we just follow the Eightfold Path, don't worry about the destination. You're gonna get a better result than if you weren't to follow the Eightfold Path, right? So I think that's the main thing we should be focused on. And if we think about intentions or orientation, what better way than Sammasankappa, where the Buddha tells us how to motivate ourselves and what are the right intentions, right, and orientations to have, which is Nekama, Vyapada, and Avihimsa, right? Renunciation, non-anger, and non-cruelty. So if we stick, to these basic Buddhist principles, the path that the Buddha gave us in the Eightfold Path, then we already know where it's leading, right? It's leading directly to Nibbana. So we might not get there in the next life or 100 lives, but we're going to keep making our life better, or at least not worse. And that in itself brings a great relief, right? That at least we're not messing up our lives.
Yeah, your rebirth will be determined by your last thought. So you have to wait till your last thought. So we really can predict where will you be leading to. Remember, even Queen Mallika, who after having done so many things, she was born in a lower realm because of the pollution of a thought at the very last minute. So it's a constant practice, as Venerable Sanatha Vihari mentioned. It's a constant practice. You keep working on your discipline, your vinaya, your sila, your day-to-day morality, conduct, and things will shape up for a better cause if you keep doing it. Yeah, and even in meditation, like you really have a very strong willpower to attain jhana or magapala, and it won't happen to you just like that. You have to keep it happen. You have to keep working on, and when the right time comes, when the conditions are right, then all these things will happen uh, in the right time. We can't really predict, right? Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yes. S asks, during meditation, if fantasizing keeps coming up, is it okay to write them down, I think the thoughts, as stories or fiction, so that it can be taken out of the mind? Thank you.
yeah, if you can take them out of the mind, it's okay. But otherwise, you have to keep letting them go, keep working on your own meditation. Let's say, like, you're focusing on anapanasati, you have to focus on that. And then many fantasizing, that's very natural actually, because mind is wandering all the time. And then lots and lots of thoughts can come to you if you had some very fantastic memories in the past. So these things will definitely pop up when you sit to meditate. Close your eyes, and all these beautiful memories will come to you. So you have to know the art of letting go, and then focus on your own meditation. Sometimes, as I mentioned at the beginning, you if these things are too much bothering, then go to counting method and try to you know be more focused on that. Or even then, if it is not happening, just see them as they come to you, like, oh, right now I am getting fantasizing this thing, that thing. You recognize the thought that is coming, that is appearing in your mind. If you recognize, or anger comes to me, or jealousy comes to me, or lust comes to me, you need to recognize it as and when it happens. If you recognize them, it will come and it will go away without damaging much. So it's very important to be focused on your practice. Should we go to the next one?
So I think this was actually answered, Bante. I think they
Okay.
just rewrote. I think they looks like they wrote at a different time, but
Okay. So this one, right?
well, they asked.
Equanimity and having
Yeah.
no enthusiasm. We
Yeah.
talked about that.
Yeah.
Please. Oh, sorry, we can't read this.
We have a tie.
It
Yeah.
doesn't.
Question?
It doesn't look like that. Maybe like Cambodian. Yeah,
Chawat Supa Wepong. Yeah, maybe.
you can read.
Cambodian. No.
Yeah, Chaiwat. You need to write it in English.
Put it in Google Translate and send it to us.
Yes, you write it in Hindi, or maybe we can read. Otherwise, we can. Yes. Okay. One more question.
Okay, S asks how to figure out the correct rhythms in Pali chanting, or is it completely random and unpredictable?
There's no standardized. If you go to different countries, even within the same country, monks are going to chant different. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about the rhythm.
You chant the way you can.
Yes.
That's your rhythm. Yeah. Sometimes you can listen to some chantings and you feel like, okay, it looks nice, so you can do it. If not, you chant the way you can. That's fine.
Okay, Lydia asks, is giving to the monastery at the end of the rains retreat more merit than now? And if so, why? But I think she means the Buddhadhamma, because Buddhadhamma. Is it more merit? Well, Bante Sanata Vihari actually he read the Mahayana Sutra about this. I mean, what I would personally say is it might be more merit, but unless you have psychic powers to really understand I've heard in some traditions they'll say like, oh, on this day there's 100,000 times the merit, so then maybe people only give on that day or something, right? It's more merit if you gave every day but that day than if you gave just on that day. At least I don't know that personally, but that's just my assumption. Like if you were to give every single day and build a habit versus if you were to think like, oh, I'm only going to give on that one day, then probably that's not the best. So it's good to give on those days. I personally don't know. Maybe the other venerables have.
You don't even know that you're going to survive till the end. And the thing is, like most of the time, why is it so important? It is said because during this rains retreat, the monks keep practicing very strongly, And the Buddha said, stop wandering and start practicing. Stay in one place and practice. So during the rains retreat, when it is raining outside, the monks are not supposed to go out and they are supposed to practice. So even here, like for example, in California, it's not raining too much, but we still practice rains retreat. We call it rains retreat. So everywhere, the same Buddhist calendar, we practice. We call it rains retreat. During that time, the monks pay more attention to their own spiritual practice. And so if you keep practicing like for 3 months, that really is a powerful thing. And in the past, it is said like during the history of Buddhism, we found more arahantas, more enlightened persons coming up at the end of the or during the course of this rains retreat than any other time. So that is why it is so precious, and that is why people really love to offer something, because that makes sense. And in fact, but then it's your own heart, how much good heart you have, how much pure when you offer something, that will really determine your course, your action of generosity. um, yeah, that is the idea actually, giving to the monastery at the end of the rains retreat or during the course of it or at the time. It depends on totally up to you on the one hand. And also in Dakshina Vibhanga Sutta, I think I remember, like the dana can be pure um, um, on the basis of the monk's sila, or on the basis of their donor sila, on the basis of their both of their sila. So especially during the rains retreat, both the monastics and the lay people have more opportunity to practice and learn the Dhamma. That way, during the rains retreat, we all can do so much good karma, so much merit. It's a season of determination. It's a season of effort, right? I want to. I remember there is a story like like a monk. He was a very good monk. He knew everything about meditation, and he had a lot of students. And then he was teaching all the time. And then one of the students, he already followed his method, and he became arahanta. He became enlightened. And one day he wanted to check whether his teacher has attained arahanthood or not. And he found the teacher has not attained arahanthood. He was super busy teaching, and he didn't have that accomplishment, and he wanted to remind that. And then he came to the monk, and he was asking for an appointment. He said, I am busy, I don't have time. And then the young monk said, do you have time to die? And that time actually it was coming to him as a shock, and it opened his blockage. And then he decided to run away from the monastery, leaving behind all those things. And then he went deep inside the forest, and then he kept practicing. And then he thought, okay, I know everything about meditation, like A to Z. I know I can easily attain arahanta. So he started practicing at the beginning of the Vasa rains retreat. So by right now, I am just a Putujana or mundane monk, but at the end of the rains retreat, I will become an arahant. He was super confident. So he kept practicing, and he kept practicing. At the end of the course, he was still just a normal person. He couldn't attain arahanthood. And then he was very upset. At the end of the rains retreat, he thought, okay, next time I'm going to start Vasa or rains retreat as an arahanta monk. He kept practicing, and still he couldn't do anything. And then it happened so long, and then it is said he was crying at the end of the walking pad. He was crying so loud, And then he heard another one was also crying. And then he asked, who is this? And he was a tree god. Tree god was crying too. Then he asked, why do you cry? The tree god said, I think if you can achieve arahanthood by crying, I'm also trying that method. So he was even more upset. So you see, like there are so many beautiful stories about the rains retreat, and eventually this monk kept on trying and trying and trying, and eventually it is said he was able to attain the Magaphala. Yeah,
Bhante, that's it.
yeah, it is time
Okay.
for us to wind up today's session, and there are so many questions. Actually, please come up with them another time, and we really appreciate everyone. So many people joined, so many questions also, and we, on behalf of the Empty Cloud Monastery, the resident monks, and all the live audience here, we would like to um, wind up today with three sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.